Thank you, Vice President Schreiner, members of the board. Every year at this time in December, I give a overview of the previous fiscal year. Right around this time, we're working with the audit staff. The auditors are wrapping up our books. I don't see any issues with our audit right now. We don't have our final determination or our opinion letter, but everything so far in our audit has gone through smoothly. And during that process, I prepared this 163-page document, and there's a lot of technical information here, a lot of things that if you want some really dry reading and if you need to go to sleep, it's a good one to take to bed with you. But what I do put together at this time is a nice short 6-page document that goes out to our community as well, much more easily understood, just kind of goes over some of the highlights of the previous fiscal year, and I'll go through those right now on this PowerPoint over here on your left. So first of all, our revenues, this pie chart depicts our revenues for last fiscal year 16-17. Overall, our revenues increased last fiscal year by about 4.1%. And proportionately, you can see our property taxes are about 37% of our revenues, and our state funding right here in the blue is about 51%. Our collections are stable on our real estate. Our collection rates have been pretty much on cue with where we think they're supposed to be. And in our state funding, that 51% of our pie, we saw $8.2 million growth over the previous fiscal year. So that was where we were with our revenues. On our expenditures, from fiscal year 15-16 to 16-17, our expenditures grew roughly 5%. But one thing you can't see with the plant right there for the party we're going to have afterwards, but it says in our instruction in the blue and our instructional support there, those two items make up 73% or 73 cents on the dollar of every dollar that's spent goes towards instruction in our school district. So the lion's share of our dollars are going into the classrooms and making a difference for the students of our school district. So that's important to point out. These are all general fund revenues and general fund expenditures that I'm talking about right now. So we have other funds in our school district that we deal with, and our other funds are depicted by, we have debt service funds, capital project funds, special revenue funds, agency funds, internal service funds, and enterprise funds. Our two major pieces of the pie here, you can see our capital projects fund. That makes up about 21% of the other funds that we spend money on. We were wrapping up our OFCC project, so the year before we had a much larger expenditure, over $100 million spent in that fiscal year, but last year we were really closing those projects out, and we came in on time and under budget. That's one good thing to note about our capital projects is that we do have some funds left over there that we are going to reallocate to some additional buildings. That project that we just went forward with last month, that's going to be used on these dollars that are left over. Also with the debt service, something I want to point out, that piece of the pie usually isn't that big, but in fiscal year 16-17, just like we most recently did a refunding of some bonds, we did some refundings of some bonds that year too. That year we did $35.8 million in refunded bonds, meaning that we had interest rates that were more favorable to us at the time. So we took some of our old debt, resold some bonds, and got a lower interest rate. And the savings during this fiscal year in future interest payments was about $6.4 million. So it was a nice chunk of savings that we got for our taxpayers. Also, this year we just finished out about a $10 million advance refunding for some bonds, and we saved another about $2.8 million. So those two projects right there, those two refundings really saved our taxpayers some dollars moving forward. So real positive to point that out. On our cash balances, when I spoke at our 5-year forecast meeting back in October, I talked about having a cash balance of about 6 to 7 months. We're still on target for that. Everything is going through smoothly. And at the end of this fiscal year, 2016-17, we had that 6 to 7 month cash balance in our general fund. So a very strong financial finish for that fiscal year. And that also helped us when we met with the Standard & Poor's and Moody's, the credit rating agencies last month. when we talked through that with them, that we maintained our AA rating in both Standard & Poor's and Moody's. So we're a very strong credit risk, a very strong credit portfolio for investors that are out there looking for investments when they're looking for municipal type bonds to purchase. One thing I want to point out, and I always think this, it's hard to see on this sheet, and Sandy has some bigger sheets of this over there if you want to grab one after the meeting, but you handed them out. Thank you. So when we look at where we rank with other Franklin County school districts, this column over here to the far right, that depicts our expenditures per pupil. This is for fiscal year 16 and 17. And I was able to grab the information off the Ohio Department of Education's website as well to get that current data for fiscal 16 and 17. So if you look at where we are in the county, we are 14th out of 16 districts in Franklin County. The actual average for Franklin County expenditure per pupil is $12,194. You can see from where we stand, we spend about $1,700 less per student than the average in Franklin County. If you equate that to our number of students, if you multiply that by our 22,000 students, that means we spend $37 million less than those schools. If we were spending at that level, we would be spending $37 million more in our budget right now. If you look at where we rank with the state, it's in the fine print down here, but the state average is $11,605. So we're spending actually less in every school district in the state of Ohio. We're spending about $1,100 less than every school district in the state of Ohio. And that equates to about $24 million. If we were just spending at the state level, our expenditures would be up $24 million. So that's not small amounts. That's something to really, I think it's a shining moment for us to say that, you know, we're doing a nice job with the dollars that we have, and we're providing a great product at a lower price. And some of our ability to do that is in economies of scale. We are a larger district. We can really put our resources in a way that some other school districts of smaller scale can't really do. They have to have one superintendent for a school district of 2,200 kids. We only have one superintendent for a school district of 22,000 kids. So, you know, when you look at what if you break it down even further and look at what our administrative expenditure per pupil is, we're much lower than school districts throughout the state because we do have those economies of scale. And I think that's important to point out. Also on these two columns, the one in the middle, this is our operating millage rate for Franklin County. And we are in that bottom third again there. And the far left column is all millage rates all in. If they have a permanent improvement levy, if they have bond levy that is out there, and also their operating levies. So if you add all those up, we are still in that bottom third. You can look, there's one that's just barely above us, Upper Arlington. They'll be much higher than us next year because they just passed a big bond issue at the end of the year, so their millage rate will hike up. But all these ones underneath us, Groveport, Grandview, Gahanna, and Hamilton, they weren't on the ballot, so I anticipate that they will still be below us when these new numbers come out for this next tax year 2017, collection year 2018. The bills aren't out yet. All the information is in at the Franklin County Auditor's Office. They've sent that information to the Department of Taxation, and bills will be going out soon, so you'll know what your millage rates are going to be. But as far as Southwestern City Schools goes, no new levies, no new dollars. The only increases that will be on there will be some readjusting due to reappraisal. But overall, taxes should remain low as where we are in the bottom third of the county. So that's a brief review of that. I will have this, Sandy will have this document posted to the website tomorrow after the meeting. And so it'll be out there for our public to consume and look at and to see. The CAFR should be released sometime at the end of this month. That takes a little bit longer. There's a few more review processes that go forward for that, but that will be available as well. So I entertain any questions if you have them.
Questions for Mr. Garside? As always, you make something complicated easy for us. Thank you.